champions of England.
We've conquered all of Europe. We're never gonna stop. From Palestine to Turkey, we've won the fucking lot. Got Paisley and the Shankly, the fields of Anfield gold. We are all supporters, and we come from Liverpool.
Welcome everybody to the Red Sea Down Under. My name is Nick. I'm your host for this one. I'm still having dramas with this. It's just not playing videos properly, so I have no idea if it actually played or not, but it seemed to be okay. I'm joined by Peter to my left on your screen. Hello, Peter.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Any hangovers today?
No, I didn't drink. I was driving. I was responsible.
No, he's driving. Shout out. Congratulations on your wedding, George Xanthus. He is now a married man, so another one bites the dust. And Peter was there enjoying the festivities. Was it a good wedding, Peter?
It was a lovely wedding. It was a small one, but it was a good one. It was plenty of dancing. I almost tore a hamstring. I made a rookie error. I just started dancing without a stretch, so that's my mistake. Yeah, but George's suit. I'll see if I could put a photo up on our page. On the inside of his suit jacket, Liverpool lining. Yeah, which was a nice little touch to the suit. It made probably the wedding better than what it was. And
you had a very special table. You had a special table number as well.
Oh yeah, and George had sat me on table number 8, which is obviously he did it on purpose. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone to the wedding. So
because you love Naby Keita.
You've done well.
It's because you love Naby Keita. Was that the reason?
That's Keita. That's right. Keita love.
How do I remove someone from that group? How do I? Is that the bottom here?
I can just
we'll deal with that after. I'm also joined by Aussie Robbo, James, bottom left corner. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you, my friend. It's good to hear about Mr. Xanthus' wedding and Pete staying appropriately sober and not stretching before dancing, which is a bit of a shock for someone who's a football coach, but he's obviously not a dance coach, so that's fine. But good to be back. Good to be able to talk football again. It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing Peter didn't have a Vince McMahon in the 2005 Royal Rumble cock-up moment there where he tore both his quads. And also joined by Mr. Steve Wilding, bottom right corner. Hello, Steve. How are you, sir?
I am marvellous. How are you?
Fantastic. I am very, very well, shall we say, and everything is good. And as we kick things off when it comes to footballing news, once again, do give us a bit of a follow if you do enjoy our content at Red Sea Down Under and the Red Sea Pod, which is the main account for more LFC related content. Shout out to the boys who did a watch along this morning for the Africa Cup of Nations, and they also did a post match for the FA Cup match just last night for us. But as we move on to the main news, Mane is king of Africa. Senegal won their penalty shootout. Was it 3-2 or something this morning? Was it 4-3 or something to that effect? And Mane was the one who scored the winning penalty, and he missed the penalty in that match as well early on, actually. So Mane reigns supreme. Commiserations for Mo Salah, who was distraught. You could see it after, and Mane was then consoling him. Best friends, or friends rather, for LFC, but unfortunately,
rivals according to the media.
It rivals to the media, yeah. They're massive rivals. Well, when nations compete against one another, you can say that. But then again, we say, like they used to say, Manchester United and Liverpool players rivals, in the Premier League, and then when they're England camp, everyone's happy and together, like they've been best friends for years. Still rivals internally, but it is what it is. But straight off the bat, did you think that Senegal were going to go all the way? Anyone want to take this one here? Because at one stage you looked like they were underperforming, but they ended up coming up top, and Mane won Player of the Tournament as well.
Were they favourites at one stage anyway?
They were, yeah.
I think they were, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Cameroon.
They had to be up there with Cameroon,
Egypt.
I think Egypt outperformed to get to the final.
I think
they were crap.
I think the thing with Egypt was they were obviously riding on the big name Salah coming in, and that's I think what made them look to be favourites. But the only reason they got to the final was through their backup goalkeeper, who I think from the round of 16 onwards was by far the best player of the tournament. And then Ben Mendy got, not Ben Mendy, but Edouard Mendy, got I think goalkeeper of the tournament, which I thought was a little bit of a sore.
Yeah,
one,
that was harsh.
Yeah, but that's how tournaments go, right? It seems to be a common theme with these things.
Well, I mean, in hindsight, when you look at it, you're probably looking at like the two teams with arguably some of the best players in world football right now in Mane and Salah. So it was sort of like seemed fair that they would square up against one another. And it sucks for Liverpool fans because you don't want to see your two, fan favourites and arguably, some of the best players we've had in recent years squaring off against one another. But unfortunately, the way football works, someone has to win and someone has to lose. And it came down to penalties. I've said it before, it'll be the hill I die on. I hate how penalties can sway the outcome. Like, if you lose it, it's a shit way to lose. If you win it, it's like a 50-50 chance, but you're winning it in any case. And we've won things on penalties before, so can't really complain in that sense there. But to me personally, it's not like an actual representation of the better team. It comes down to chance in a way, but I suppose you still have to put your penalties away. But, I mean, in saying that, are we surprised that no one scored in this game?
I think... But my reflection is you do not put your best penalty taker last.
Makes no sense, does it?
It's criminal, absolutely criminal. And Mo Salah I think that would have been his first opportunity for an African Cup of Nations title. I think Egypt are the record holders, but putting him last when you and the attempts at the penalties that were missed by Egypt, it wasn't because Mendy was pulling off phenomenal saves or anything like that. They were just shit penalties. Yep. Like, that's ridiculous. And I know every time Mo Salah goes to take a penalty, Peter has a heart attack. But the reality is 95 or 6% of his penalties he converts. Why would you not? He
always takes the fifth penalty from him. And that makes it's not just the final. It's every time they get to
every time. And it's just, if you do that on your way to the final, then all right, maybe a couple of times, once or twice, that might be fine. But when you're in a final, you just got to make it count. And I think it was Zizou's penalty, or whatever his name was, the second penalty was sublime, absolutely phenomenal. But the rest were just absolute piss poor for a final. So disappointing. And it was probably quite a surprise. Actually, it probably wasn't a surprise during the game that it finished 0-0, because some of the games that have been played have actually just gone out like that, and just hasn't been too many clear-cut opportunities. There was a great couple of chances for Senegal in the, I think it was the second half of the extra time. And again, the Egyptian goalkeeper just kept them in it. Absolutely phenomenal. But just the penalty thing just blows my mind. Can't believe that.
Well, funny we say that because we say like the Egyptian keeper kept Egypt in the game, but let's keep it a stack. That was the fourth match they've played for 120 minutes, and that's not easy to do. And I think Pete will talk about this later on in terms of like Salah coming back and his physical condition and his mental space as well after narrowly missing out on a Continental Cup here. So we'll talk about that later on. But four matches, 120 minutes can't be easy. And we'll see what happens there. But I mean, I'm surely we're happy for Mane to be winning something, aren't we, Peter?
Look, depends if Milner plays.
Why does it depend if Milner plays if Mane wins something?
Well, that's just normally what happens, right? We just throw Mane for Senegal. This is what we do. That's what Jurgen Klopp will do. Or just take off Tsimikas even if he doesn't play for Senegal. No, but look, it was good for Mane to get his moment. I guess, he's had a, rough, let's be honest, 12 to 16 months performance-wise.
Yeah.
And he's copped a lot of shit from his own people, from opposition fans, from everybody. And maybe this could be something that kind of, obviously the Luis Diaz signing, which I'm sure we'll touch up on, and winning this may just be that like second win that he needs. Because obviously Mane in form is obviously a very dangerous player and one that you don't want to kind of come up against in form. I think Salah, I agree with some of the comments I read. I think Salah will bounce back from this quite easy, purely because he's still the best player in the world. But I feel like if Mane had lost, I feel like that was it for him, considering the form that he's in and everything else that was going. Oh, obviously, the performances, the form, the dipping forms, the inconsistency. For us, I think this is probably better for Mane than Salah winning it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well,
I agree on that.
someone said Mane will come back, a rejuvenated, refreshed man with a bit of confidence, and Salah will come back with something to prove to the footballing world. So, fair to say, it was decent tournament. I mean, just that third place playoff between Cameroon and Burkina Faso was out of control. Someone likened it to Liverpool coming back in Istanbul. So that was a nice little nod, being down 3-0 and then coming back to 3-all and then winning it on penalties. So there you go. But we'll move along from that. Once again, congratulations to Mane and Senegal. And, we'll see when Mane returns to the squad. But you'd think that perhaps Salah's coming home early, whether he's going to feature for Leicester or not, which we'll talk about soonish. Would you think he's going to have a bit of a rest, Jimmy, Salah, having played, continuously like 120 minutes 4 times over in a row?
I would love to see Salah back straight away, but I think the reality is when you've played that much football in that amount of time, plus then the travel back from Cameroon, the likelihood, as much as probably Salah wants to be playing as well, I think the likelihood is we won't be seeing him at the weekend. If we do, maybe a sub appearance, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. We've managed to get this far. The biggest thing we've talked about the last few months, apart from the Salah contract, has been, missing Salah and Mane and Keita, of course, during the African Cup of Nations. We've managed to get from the start of, just after the start of January to this point. I know we've had the winter break just then, or the international break, whatever you want to call it. But we've managed to do just fine. We've just brought in Diaz, who's made an instant impact last night as well, which is great to see. We've got quite a fresh team right now. I don't think it would do us any harm just to maybe say one game we don't feature Salah, because what's going to be more beneficial for us in the next 4, 5, 6, 7 games? I would say it's again, like we said, a Mohamed Salah who's had that time to recover, recuperate, and then come back into the squad and hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's a fair point there. Well, we'll see what happens with Salah. Hopefully, he gets his deserved rest. If he takes a week, I'm sure the medics and the staff there at the new training camp, whatever the hell it's called, I keep forgetting now. They're going to look after him and going to assess him. Thank you, and going to assess him appropriately and see what happens there further on there. But you alluded to it just before there, Mr. Nicholson. I want to get a Steve on this one. Buenos Diaz. We weren't certain whether he would actually make a start in this game, let alone make an appearance, or vice versa. But he came off on the bench. He played a solid half hour. I actually thought he got an assist for Taki's goal. Evidently, I don't think it was actually given to him. But what did you make of the first ever Colombian to play for Liverpool FC?
I think he showed some glimpses of what he could do. I think everyone shit themselves when he went down.
Oh,
he had
that
knee injury.
Bro, I just went, I just went, oh no.
It wasn't just him though; it was all the reactions of the other players. They all rushed over to him and waving, and I was like, "Oh fuck, his knee's gone." But then when you saw the replay, and it was just the guy's boot came down on the top of his knee, and it was like, thank fuck for that, because that would have just been typical. Comes in for his debut and then just pops his knee. But no, he did well. There were some good glimpses there. We've seen what he can do at Porto against us twice this year. I'm not going to pretend I watched a lot of Portuguese football to know a lot about him, but what I have seen about him, he looks promising, and we showed glimpses of that. He did really well for Minamino's goal. It was shit defending from Cardiff, but he put him under pressure, and then there was one moment where it was just left foot, right foot in a sort of split second just to create that opening to pull it back. But now I'm excited to see what he can do. Obviously, everyone's now saying he's going to replace Mane, but we'll see. Rejuvenated Mane coming back, and it's just another piece in that front three. We've said before, they're all aging. They're all like 30, 31. So they're all going to be coming to, you'd think Salah will probably carry on longer than the rest, but we need people to come in and slowly take over their reins. And Jota was probably piece one of that puzzle. Is Diaz going to be the second main piece? Hopefully so.
Pete, tell me, did you see anything from Diaz's 30-odd minutes that sort of you noticed and thought like, oh, this is something we haven't seen before? Or is it pretty much of the same sort of like winger running at defense? Because, I mean, just his awareness to hunt that ball down and not let it go out, keep it in play with those quick feet and, cut it back to Jota, who evidently missed it and went to Taki for his goal. Did you see anything else apart from that makes you think, okay, this is what he can do for Liverpool?
No, what you're talking about there is that it's obviously that South American kind of like hunger to make sure they get that ball. Like we saw that with Luis Suarez and some others that we've had who just obviously just won that ball no matter what. But he's actually taller than I thought he was on the pitch. He looked taller than what I assumed. I think maybe it could be the red that makes him look bigger, as we've seen that as one of the famous quotes. The man has go to red. It was. Look, that like as Steve was just alluding to, that footwork on the byline, I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. There's just fancy footwork in tight areas, which is obviously something that we struggled with when people kind of compact their defense or the edge of their box. I feel like then if that's the case, and he's this kind of guy that can weave between 2 or 3 players with his kind of footwork, I think that's exactly what we need to inject into this front line. Whereas Mane used to be able to do it, whether he does it now after becoming the best player in Africa or not is another story. But we've seen Salah do it bits and pieces. Salah took on the whole Man City team, but it'll be good if there's another one that can get in there and just do something like that 1v1 kind of specialist. And I think hopefully he can become that person.
Yeah. A shout out quickly to Rahul, says good to see us back. Squad's getting healthier, more competition starting to appear. Yes, we're going to talk about the players coming back and the like soon as we flow through. But the international duty does help us a little bit because Keita came back and he was seemingly unscathed. He ended up coming off, but all is good and well because it's nice to see players getting subbed, and it wasn't like, nonsense subs in the 90th minute to waste time. They were nice and early because you want to rejuvenate players. Some haven't played in a long time. Others obviously new, like Luis Diaz coming into the squad. But before we move on to the next one here, let's just talk about this. Harvey Elliott, take a bow. What a nice little 30 minutes from him as well. And what a way to mark his return with a touch, a turn, and a volley into the net that no one saw coming. How good was that to see Stephen Wilding?
Well, if I was alone, I would have touched myself. But, it was... It was good. Now, it took me by surprise because the ball came in, like you said, and he just took that one touch, and I didn't expect him to swivel and just smash it back in. So, and the thing I loved more about the goal was his celebration. It was just, you could see how much it meant to him after the injury he'd had and coming back in. And that's his first senior goal for Liverpool as well, in front of the Kop. I loved it. It was just great to see him back. And then when he did that, I thought, that's good now. Let's get him back integrated in that first squad. Give him some minutes and that. So, no, happy to see that, but quality finish.
How good was it to see him just running around, like wanting the ball, Jimmy, and just looking to make something happen? Because we sort of see it with Chamberlain, who was out for this game here, but we need someone like Elliott. And we know when he was injured in that Leeds game that we sort of said to ourselves, oh, shit, what do we do now? He's been the midfielder on that right side that's been running in and out. Jones was out at that time. Jones came back. He got subbed as well in this game. He played on that left side there. Had a few pops at goal that went over like very much like Coutinho in the early days when he'd hit and he would just go into row Z. And then eventually, a season or two later, found his feet and started banging them, top bins. But it was nice to see Elliott just take the ball on that right side and play little 1-2s with Trent or whoever was in the midfield alongside him and just try and make things happen.
It was perfect. It's exactly what we wanted to see, and it was glimpses of what we had seen at the start of the season from Harvey Elliott as well. And we've clearly missed it in the last few months, and we've been sort of getting pieces from Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who, in all fairness to him, probably has been getting moved around a little bit more than what he should be, and then gets randomly dropped when he shouldn't be, and things like that. He's had his best spell in a few months, but Harvey Elliott's just come back half an hour. I appreciate it is against Cardiff, who are struggling in the Championship at the moment, but when you get that opportunity to come back, there's probably still a bit of nerves there. It's first game in nearly 6 months, I think it is now. You just want to go in, you want to do a great job, and you want to come out unscathed. So to come in and to show his ability and to show it with such confidence and such energy through it as well, it's exactly what we want to see from any player, but in particular Harvey Elliott. He's already grown this like extra excitement around him because he's still only 18. That's the amazing thing. So I had to double check that when Steve said about touching himself around the age. So I'm glad he's over the age of 18. But it's just absolutely phenomenal that he's come back. He's done that. I'm past that point with you. It's just phenomenal that he can he can come in and do that, and it just makes you think, so what have we got next? We've got Leicester coming up. We've got some real tough games coming up soon. If you can have a player like that, whether he starts, whether he gets introduced into a game, because we're still trying to manage his minutes, he is going to be bringing so much to our game that we have been missing, not just for parts of the season, but for seasons gone past. He has matured in such a way that is absolutely phenomenal. We've bemoaned squad depth for so long. We used to look at the bench and you used to kind of go, oh, great, yeah, look who we've got. We can bring on Divock Origi, or we can bring on some 17-year-old kid who no one's ever heard of, but that's the team we have. And now you look at it, and in this game in particular, we brought on Andy Robertson, we brought on Luis Diaz, now we've brought on Harvey Elliott, we've brought on Thiago, we've brought on James Milner. Maybe not a good example, but you get what you know what I'm getting at, right? There's names on that bench. There's players who haven't even been named in that squad who are out for injury. So what a position to be in. So to see Harvey Elliott come in, make his return, score a fantastic goal, and have a strong impact on this game, absolutely phenomenal. Really excited to see what comes and to see what else Steve is going to touch himself to.
Peter, what does this mean for the midfield of Liverpool right now when we have Jordan Henderson, Naby Keita, Thiago, Fabinho coming back from international duty, I think, and Alisson was out as well. Obviously not part of the on-field team, but nonetheless. And also having Curtis Jones in there, Oxlade-Chamberlain. What does this midfield look like for Liverpool now this season? Should everyone remain fit? Like, what does it do for the midfield? Since we had a midfield crisis halfway through the season, now for the second half, it looks like we have everyone back.
What it means is that hopefully we never see James Milner again.
That's fair. That is fair. That's fair.
Because obviously he comes on, he sits next to his boyfriend, and we go when we concede. So, I just don't want to see that anymore with a midfield duo of Henderson and Milner. So hopefully that's what everybody coming back means. We don't see that anymore. But in terms of your strongest midfield, Fabinho and Thiago, obviously the first two names on the score on the sheet. That's obviously that, and everything also, and whoever else is going to be, then good luck to them. As long as there's those two, I would love to see Curtis Jones in with those two. I think Curtis Jones. People think that Curtis Jones is like 28 years old the way they talk about him, which is so weird.
Yeah,
so he's a young boy as well, man. He's like
he's just turned 21. It's just anything. The reason why they think he's so old is because he's played obviously a lot of games for someone at his age. He's played for more. At his current age, he's played more games for Liverpool than Gerrard did. So it's something that I think people forget that he's just turned 21, and we saw that he's got the eye for goal. And like you said earlier, Nick, he scored a few of them. But if you don't do that, you're not going to score. So I think that's something that he's got that X factor about him, that it will come with games and coaching and being around the right players. I think if you put him with our strongest team week in, week out, I think he forms a relationship with these players, and I think he becomes a bit more dangerous. But we all know that's not going to happen. It'll probably end up being Henderson and Keita will be rotating within those roles. Once Thiago is fully fit, that is. But if you had to ask me right now, if I had to play a final tomorrow and we had to win the final, it's got to be Fabinho, Henderson, and Thiago.
So out of that, you say Henderson is the player that would sort of like be on the rotation, or is that be
1,000,000%?
I think Fabinho. Well, Fabinho being the defensive mid, he's more integral, I think, in that midfield. So we need him in there regardless. I think you can probably rotate between a Thiago and someone else, and even a Henderson. But I agree with you. Milner yesterday when he came on, I thought, why are you bringing him on so early in this match? There's no need for him. He brought him on, and he even had a couple of shaky moments. Like you could see, like it was like half a second behind doing something. That when we conceded the goal from Cardiff, it was a sloppy ball from Firmino. But then again, Milner wasn't quick enough to sort of get to it as well. And you sort of say to yourself, like, was it necessary to do that, Klopp? Like was it seriously necessary to bring him on when you had other players you could have just left on for another 5 or 10 minutes? Or even just brought on someone else. But I digress. I'm not having a dig at Milner, but let's be real. He's 36 years old. He's not going to be running up and down like he used to. But you know what? The midfield is looking better now, much better. And the front line is looking good too. Let's talk about the front line now, because Firmino started, Jota and Minamino. Jota and Minamino got their goal. Minamino got their goals. I noticed Firmino was dropping deep a little bit as well, playing a sort of like number 10 role when Diaz came on.
He did. That was very interesting.
Yeah, I noticed he was dropping deep. I didn't mind it actually because you can see him get the ball, do his little turns, lay it off to Diaz, or try and find someone else on the other side. Is that something we can probably look forward to as well? If we don't have one of those midfielders, could Firmino drop just behind that central position?
It's an interesting thought, and you sort of wonder, is that just something that we're seeing as a once-off to help introduce Diaz into the game, try and sort of make him a bit more comfortable with maybe the style of play that he's had, but something that still works for our team. But then also at the same time, is it maybe something that we're trying to look at longer term? I mean, how long have we been playing this similar tactic in this similar way, and then every season we just tweak one or two slight things? So is this another tweak as we bring a player in? I mean, I think Jota, as an example, when he came in, he came in and just slotted in and done perfectly there. So is this maybe because Diaz now offers something a bit different? Are we trying to adapt, not everything, but certain aspects of our game to try and utilize him to his best potential? It'd be great to see. It'd be fantastic to see, because I do sometimes feel that not that we become easy to read, but I think sometimes we sort of get stuck with ideas, and it takes either a moment of magic from someone in particular to sort of unlock it. And I guess that's what separates the great teams from the good teams. But sometimes you can't just rely on that. Sometimes that's when you do get stuck. So maybe it is something to sort of bring something else into our repertoire, bringing in Diaz.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the average positions from SofaScore on my phone. I'd share it if I could, but it does show Jota in that central position, Firmino just behind him on the left, Jones to his left, and behind him, Tsimikas. So it's an interesting one there, because how do you take Jota out of this team now when Mane and Salah come back, and you've got Diaz as well who can fill in the roles? Like, what do you do, Steve? How do you fit all these play? Obviously, you can't, but like, what do you do to accommodate them? Like, is there a certain play, like maybe Diaz suits a 4-2-3-1? Is there maybe just a like-for-like replacement now? Because there's no chance Mane is going to be wanting to be subbed, 20 minutes from time, and Diaz coming on. Diaz wants to start. Mane would want to start. Salah obviously wants to start. So how do you try and make this work?
That's the fun and games of being Jurgen Klopp. I mean, we all want a strong forward line. And just before I answer your question, you're talking about how strong our forward line is. Your shirt is giving me flashbacks to Barini, Balotelli, and Ricky Lambert.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Just think back to that, of what we had, and then just appreciate how good it is now. So it's a good problem to have, and you hear it in the media all the time. It's a difficult one, but it's a good problem to have. You can't single out a set front three that's going to be able to play every game. It just doesn't work, because Salah will play most games, yes, but then you can't just go Salah, Mane, Firmino, because on Jota's form and what he's done since he's been at the club, he has to get game time. And at the same time, we still want Firmino to be playing. And then you got Diaz coming in. There's the good thing is, I guess, we've got a lot of games coming thick and fast now. Obviously, we've had that mini winter break. We've got Leicester on Friday morning for us, which is obviously Thursday night UK time, and then we play Burnley again at the weekend, and then Champions League starts back up, and then we've got League Cup final. We've got FA Cup.
6 games remaining in February to play. 6 games.
Ooh. Yeah,
Jesus,
so we're going to need to rotate. There's no doubt about that. When does the Norwich game fall? The FA Cup one?
Week of the 28th, I believe they said.
That's the first. Yeah, so that will be the 28th in the evening.
Yeah,
so that's 2nd of March at the moment. That's
potentially one of the games you'll look at where we can not put kids out, but rotate it a little bit. You'd expect us to beat Norwich at home, even with a team like we put out yesterday. Obviously, we'll have a few more back: Fabinho, Alisson, Salah and Mane. But that's one game you can look at where rotation is going to come in. But the way these games are coming, there's going to be games where Firmino's on the bench. There's going to be games where Mane's on the bench. I think Mane we're not going to see for a couple of weeks, probably anyway, because he's going to go back to Senegal, celebrate the win, and then he'll rejoin the club. So I think it might be a couple of weeks till we see him starting for Liverpool again. Salah, I've got a feeling Salah's going to be on the bench against Leicester. Yeah. I think Salah has got that attitude that he's so determined. He will just want to get back into it and just pick up where he left off. So I think he'll be on the bench. Wouldn't even surprise me if he started, but we'll see on that one. And then, unless there's any other injuries picked up, like Jota's got to play. He can be really frustrating to watch sometimes, but he proves week in, week out. Give him a chance and he'll score. I mean, he was really unlucky after about 4 or 5 minutes yesterday where he did that. I don't know if you guys remember it. The ball came into him. A little turn and flick through the guy's legs. And then all he had to do was place it in the corner of it. He just got excited and went to smash it.
Yeah.
So rotation is going to be key. There's going to be players like Salah, who's pretty much, I reckon, going to play most of the games because that's just what he does. But I think between Firmino, Jota, Mane, and then bringing Diaz in, obviously, we don't generally throw someone in straight away. It will be slowly integrate him, give him minutes here, give him minutes there. FA Cup game against Norwich, I can see Diaz starting, which I know is a few weeks away anyway, but there's just potential to do that. But it's a good problem to have, but up to Jurgen Klopp, I guess. He knows a lot more than us lot. Well maybe not Pete, but...
At the moment, Jimmy, I want to ask you this question. At the moment, we talk about Firmino, coming back to the starting lineup. Obviously, with having Mane and Salah out, you've got these quality players who are going to play in there. But now with Jota coming into it, now I mean, in all competitions, at least for Liverpool, he's got 15 goals in all comps. So I think he's only second to Salah at the moment for goals in all comps. So how do we know? Let me rephrase the question. You can't leave Jota out, like Steve was saying. Like, how do you fit all these players in there? Like, would you sacrifice a Firmino on the bench for a Jota for the foreseeable future at least? But then Firmino can't get to his full form. You know what I'm saying?
Jeez, don't ask me that question. It's a horrible question. Christ.
I can answer that easily. You put him as a 10. You put him as the attacking midfielder and you put just Thiago and Fabinho behind him.
That's what I was saying beforehand, because the way I saw him play against it's Cardiff, but still he was dropping deep. Even then, Jota was dropping deep as well, I noticed. So Firmino would drop deep, receive the ball from the midfield, and then look to go forward, out left or out right or something like that. That could be how he adapts his game. If we have an out-and-out striker like a Jota, maybe that's where Firmino can play. But then again, that takes one player out of the midfield. Henderson... Keita, Elliot, Jones, these sort of players, but you can maybe put them, obviously as subs, but as starters. That would be the trick.
See, it's easy to say that. Is it going to happen? How many times has Klopp done a 4-2-3-1, and then halfway through it he's gone, nah, fuck this, and he's gone back to 4-3. We played against Southampton a few years ago, and I think we were 3-0 up at half time, and he hated how we played, and he changed it despite the fact we were 3-0 up. He just, obviously there's something in him where he's like, I want to try this. I've got the players where we can make this work, but he obviously is seeing something where he is just not liking how it progresses. So I agree with Pierre. That would be the perfect way to do it. Play him as a 10, have him in front, and I don't know how many times we've said this as well, but rather than having the three midfielders where you have the one holding and the two sort of box to box, the one that sort of makes the runs, have two that sort of hold and sort of pivot, and then have that one who can just go forward and be that player. That could be Firmino, but I can't see that happening. And I think we'll just see more of what we've seen so far this season, which is where Bobby Firmino isn't played as much. And there's been countless games where we've sort of turned around and been like, if Bobby Firmino was actually playing in that number 9 role, he would have been that link to really open things up. And that's when we would have seen, games finished out more comfortably. But again, we've now got these options where you're right, you can't drop Jota. Jota goes on this scoring run, and it's like, well, Bobby Firmino sits out of the game, but then the next game comes along and Jota does absolutely nothing, is invisible for 90 minutes. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. If there was a way you could play all 5 and still be comfortable defensively, then happy days, sign me up. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, despite the defensive work that people like Mo Salah and Bobby Firmino and Jota at times do as well.
Pete, I want to ask you this question here. A comment from Rahul says, Firmino slowly being phased out just like Henderson will when we get that midfielder in the summer. Jota is our best number 9. He's a fox in the box we've lacked for us for some time. When he says phased out, how do you interpret that? Do you mean phased out from his false 9, number 9 position, or altogether? Because this is an interesting question.
I think he means altogether, but I think what you will see is that, like we saw overnight, that he's so important to us. He'll move and he'll play him in a position like as a number 10, just to keep him in the pitch, and realize that because he can still do the same thing really, because he takes up the same positions as what he does when he's playing as a striker. So we don't really lose too much. It's just we just lose that out and out midfielder that if he plays there. But if you have two deep lying midfielders, for example, the ones who can sit deeper and dictate, similar to your Fabinhos and Thiagos, I think the balance kind of works out a little bit as well. So that way, Firmino's your creative kind of runner from the midfield. It just depends who you're going to play. But phased out, I just feel like it's not going to be phased out. I feel like it's going to be a bit more rotated, because Jota's going to have a spell where he's not scoring. It's simple as that. And just like Mane's going to have another spell without scoring, and maybe Jota goes left, Firmino goes at the front, Luis Diaz can obviously come in and out as well. But I don't think it's being phased out just yet for Firmino, because like you saw against the Man United game and some other games of the last one he played in, and against it was Shrewsbury, I think it was, but he was still absolutely excellent. Like, he's still got that in his game. So I don't think it's being phased out just yet. I agree with the Henderson one though, especially if we get like a Bellingham, or if it's Elliott's turn to shine next season. And I think it's a top call as well. I think it's time to phase him out anyway, slowly, because we can only defend him for so long, and because it's getting really frustrating watching players run straight past him, and we have to say it's okay because he's our captain.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I mean, Firmino's 30 years old, so he's still got some years left in him. There's no chance I'd want to sell him. There's no chance I want him out of the club. I just love to see him play a little bit more, but it is... Look, if goals left Firmino, but assists stayed, I'd be more than happy with that. But he needs to play in order to
Listen,
get those
Salah's
assists.
goal record doesn't happen without Firmino over the past few years.
Exactly. So Firmino's integral.
That's it. Yeah,
yeah.
He's everything behind the scenes that most people don't notice, and there's the argument for years around what does Bobby Firmino bring to this Liverpool squad, and we used to just sit there and be like, well, just watch him, forget the rest of the game, and just watch Bobby Firmino.
Yep.
And he still does it now, but finally people obviously recognise that. So I agree with Pierre. It's not being phased out. It's how do you still manage him so that he's still a part of our game, because he's still as impactful, but we also now have these other amazing outlets that we can utilize.
Yeah. Well, in the last 10 or so games, he's had 3 assists and a goal. But then again, he's been injured, come back from injury, in and out of the team, etc., etc.
And he was linked with Pete's club as well.
That's right, he was too. That's right. He's having a giggle. Stephen, let's go on to the main topic at hand. A comfortable win versus Cardiff, you would say. First half, no goals, but plenty of chances. And second half, let's not forget as well. I mean, Kelleher could have been sent off. Lucky for the VAR coming into play there, he managed to remain on the pitch. That could have been disastrously for us. But at the end, 3 goals, 3-0. Obviously, we conceded the one there. But can you really be angry with that result there? The way we played, it was a pretty solid lineup as all. I have to say, it was pretty strong.
Yeah, it was strong.
11.
And like you say, the people coming off the bench as well. It was just every sub we made, apart from Milner, was strengthening the team. But the game, it wasn't a good game to watch. I'll be honest. Apart from a few moments in that second half, the first half was terrible. It just had a friendly feel to it to me. There was just, we've mentioned it
the exact same thing.
We mentioned it time and time again. The atmosphere at the ground was, you could hear Cardiff much more than what you could hear the Liverpool fans. And there wasn't a great deal to get excited about first half. I mean, I struggled to stay awake in that first half. And then the second half was better. Obviously, we got the early goal through Jota, but there was, just with the subs, it's sort of bringing the new players. It was like seeing Luis Diaz, it was getting Thiago, and the second half just seemed a bit more exciting. But I mean, you take that beforehand 3-1. It wasn't the greatest game, but job done. No injuries. A debut for Diaz. Another goal for Jota. Another goal for Minamino, and the return of Harvey Elliott. So big tick all round for me, I guess.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice to see players come in. Taki seems to be a cup player. I mean, we've got Inter coming up in a couple of weeks as well in the Champions League. Maybe he'll play overseas in Italy. Who the hell knows? With the return leg at Anfield sometime after that. But Peter, I want to ask you this question here. We just mentioned it just before there. It felt like a friendly, and even when the goals were scored, I don't know if it was just the broadcast here on 10 Play, but it felt like it was very subdued. It was just like in a friendly game, someone scores, just like, oh yeah, like, you know, golf clap sort of a thing. Like, Anfield felt like a friendly. Am I wrong in saying that?
I want to start off by saying that 10 Play thing has to fuck off. Like, that's.
But who did you have as commentators on 10 Play? Because I watched it on ITV.
Jonathan Pierce.
Oh yes,
That's who it was.
Mr. Excitable.
He sat there and spoke about how quiet Anfield is. He also started speaking about Harvey Elliott's hair for no unnecessary reason.
Yeah, he
That's
turned
why-
around.
Last time he had a ponytail. Now he's got a different. Who cares?
He turned around. He turned around at one point and he goes, "And here comes Liverpool's £37 million signing, Luis Diaz, very exciting player from Porto. Although the 2 times that I watched him play this season, he was terrible. But never mind."
Well,
What?
if you to
When
tell
I
you
heard
about
that-
Jonathan Pierce, James, you'll remember he used to do the commentary on bloody Robot Wars back in the UK.
Yeah, I know.
That's
He was
what-
good. He was good on
That's
Robot
what
Wars.
he should stick to.
He's great on Robot Wars. He's absolute wank at football.
I know.
When he started
Why
talking
that
about
Liverpool?
Luis Diaz, I watched him in the Champions League twice this year, and I wasn't too impressed. But here, Liverpool paid 40 million for him. Like, thanks, dickhead. Like, you're not part of that transfer committee. But it's yeah. Look, going back to the actual question though. So for 10 Play, if you're watching, fuck off out of, please, like, just give it back. But it's look, the atmosphere. It's been brought up multiple times this season anyway. Like, it's not just this game. It's been a few where we bring it up and we go, is it is it our broadcasting? Have they turned it down so we can hear the commentators? Is it the fact that Anfield's expanding and there are a lot more neutrals going to the games because they can? I'm not going to say what do they call them? What do they call us? People like us who go and watch the games. How they hammer us? What?
Tourist
Wolves?
mobs.
Wolves.
That's it. Yeah, Wolves. I'm not going to say it's them. But
Is it true or not?
At the moment, it felt like that definitely last night, to be honest.
But don't forget, that was like a 12 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday against Cardiff. That's what some people
Steve,
were
this is
saying.
where I get agitated. I don't care. Like, it's if you're going to the game, you're not going to the game because of the time and your voice doesn't work.
Anfield has always been like that. I used to go to the league games against the lesser clubs, and the atmosphere was just not there. It takes, and it's wrong. I agree with you 100%. That atmosphere should be there every game. But I used to go to a lot of games, and it just wasn't there. But unless you were playing United, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal at home in the league, or if you had a big European game or a big knockout, obviously yesterday was a knockout tournament, but it's against Cardiff. It just doesn't happen, and it's wrong. It should be there, but it's never has been.
When I hear that, I think of the whole.
years.
I think of the COVID rules. I think like, oh no, you can order at the bar with a mask off, but you have to sit down with the mask on. Like,
COVID don't get you when you're
Vice
sat down.
versa.
It's like,
No,
which
when
one
you're
is
eating
it?
as
Like,
well, it knows.
It's we can't sing at the ground too loud because it's at 12 o'clock on a Sunday, and it's just not. No, if you're going to the game, like, you're there for the game. Like, you're not there just because you can't sing because the sun's out. I just think if that's the case there, then don't go to the game. Watch it at home. You get someone else going to scream their lungs out.
Well, funny you say that because Klopp said something about the 12 o'clock kickoff, saying I said I'm not annoyed that it's a 12 o'clock kickoff or something like that. I'm annoyed that I don't know what he said, but he actually said something out about the 12 o'clock kickoffs that he doesn't like them, and he's been open that he doesn't like them. Maybe they're too early for him. I mean, he's been here, how many years now? He still can't get to grips that, people kick off when it's lunchtime here, which over there, which I find odd as well. To me personally, every football match should be like from 3 p.m. onwards, but I don't make the rules. So, I don't know, maybe Klopp's got something in that, but all the same, I'm with Peter. It doesn't matter whether it's a day match or a night match or whatever, weeknight, weekend, you're there to watch Liverpool. You should have the same sort of energy and fire every time you watch them, but I didn't hear any song sung on the cop anymore. Maybe they've been told not to sing that much because of the Rona nonsense rules over there. I don't know, because some clubs here in Australia, they'll tell you no singing, no jumping, no this, no that, but then they'll let other teams do it. So I don't know what the situation is there. It's frustrating. it very much is frustrating to see that sort of thing there. But I mean, in saying that though, we're 45 minutes in. We can still move on to a few things now. Now we had that solid lineup, as we said. We've had players coming back from injury. So Cater's back, Thiago's back. Everyone looks to be okay. Moving on to Leicester now, and as I said as well, we've got some other fixtures coming up. We've got Burnley away, then we've got Champions League with Inter, then we've got the Norwich at home in the Premier League. We've got Leeds at home in the Premier League. Then we've got Chelsea in the EFL Cup in the final there, and then we've got the FA Cup against Norwich. So that's not the most fun matches to come ahead with. But if everyone's back and almost everyone's back from injury, I suppose that's a good thing, Steve. I would say so.
Yeah, of course. I mean, going into this run of games now, we're fortunate that the squad looks strong. We're not. I mean, who's even out injured anymore? I think everyone is back, isn't they? Aren't they now? I think it's only obviously
Origi apparently is still a bit of a question.
Gomez and Chamberlain had COVID, but they've just completed their isolation, so they're back in training now. But yeah, it's Origi because he's got his swollen knee, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, he trained on Thursday after 2 months, so he's maybe back as well in contention.
Yeah. So look, we're more than equipped to cope with these games. Just touch wood that we don't get any major injuries coming up. But there's some tricky games in there, and there's some ones that you think we should easily be able to navigate by resting some players. So bring them on. I'm just glad the games are coming thick and fast again, because the last couple of weeks have just felt like nothing was being done. There was no game. The Palace game feels like an eternity away.
You make a good point there. I mean, the games are coming quick. We've got Leicester coming up next in the Premier League, and they got knocked out of the FA Cup by mighty former Champions League winners Nottingham Forest, 4-1, mind you. I mean, Brendan Rodgers' team, they probably haven't had the best of luck in recent weeks. They've had a few losses and a draw in between there, a few games postponed, but, you know, Leicester for us on...
yeah, but they do us over, don't they?
And Friday morning, I was about to say, we lost 1-0 away to them, and now they're coming to Anfield. It's going to be a night game. It's a 7:45 kickoff on Thursday night for those overseas in Liverpool. Are we going to see a different Liverpool team? And when I mean different, I don't mean like, obviously starting lineup might be a little bit different, but are we going to see maybe a more aggressive team, because we're still hunting Man City down in the league, Peter? We're not going to let up, surely. We need to secure 3 points as quickly as possible.
Who knows with us sometimes? I mean, I like to think that we absolutely built the crap out of them out of just pure frustration from the last game that we had against them, and it was obviously not the best performance. You know, obviously not tracking that midfielder down the right side, and he goes and scores. That we've brought that up a million times. Hopefully, you know, hopefully there's a bit of an atmosphere this time. Hopefully people start to sing, because hopefully it's not at 12 o'clock like Steve said, because people don't want to sing at 12 o'clock.
Sore throats at that time.
Yeah, it's a night kickoff. It's 7:45. So.
Oh, it's 7:45. So we'll see what it's like then.
Yeah, that's what I said.
They'll have had their Lemsips and lozenges and stuff, so their voices will be back.
I was sitting there going.
They'll have done their voice exercises.
George does that. It was George. He can show us how it's done. But this look, again, I'm confident in a win, to be fair, especially with Javier coming back, Luis Diaz, the form of Jota and everybody else kind of just looking fit and healthy again. I'm confident with the win, to be fair, but then again with Liverpool, sometimes you just never know.
Well, I think because I was just going to say, because it is an evening kickoff, I think it would make sense for them to play the Champions League music before kickoff, because all of a sudden everyone will just be like, "Oh fuck, we just got to go fucking for this. Here we go, boys," and then that's it, done. We'll win 5-0. That's it, easy.
Just play it in the tunnel before they walk outside. That's what they got to do. Well, we're undefeated in 30 of our last 32 matches in the Premier League, and they've been over 2.5 goals in 10 of Leicester's last 11 away games. So there's Peter's like, oh shit, oh no. But Leicester have conceded 2 goals in their last 3 away matches in the Premier League, and they're sitting 10th at the moment with a bit of a mixed bag. We have had a loss in between that with to Leicester, and we've had 3 wins and 2 draws. But I think players coming back is a big thing, and when you can have players coming off the bench as well and sway a game, like if Thiago starts on the bench, you can bring him on in the 60th, 70th minute and start doing things. But what you don't want to do is bring on Thiago when you're chasing a game and Leicester are just defending and saying just take pot shots from outside the box, in which case then you're probably looking at Elliott or Jones to have those shots. So probably not the best thing, but like Pete says, just get out there, just get them over and done with ASAP, 3-0 half time, and just toy around with them. But like he says, it's Liverpool. You don't know with us, Jimmy. I mean, what are you expecting from this game, considering what we saw, a very laid-back performance against Cardiff? Again, lesser opposition, I get that. But you're playing Leicester at home, probably not in the best place at the moment, but still, it's Leicester.
It's not quite got the same ring as lads. It's Tottenham, but yeah, listen,
true.
it's Leicester. No, I genuinely think we will do well this game. We've seemed to have a knack of coming out from breaks lately and doing really well. We did really well after the last break in November, and we went on a very good run. So I'm hopeful that will continue. And as we mentioned plenty of times tonight, we've probably had the healthiest, most strongest squad to choose from, minus of course Mane and potentially Salah. Not too sure there, but never really been a position where we've been like, oh, we don't have Mane and Salah, and we're not too concerned about the team that gets picked because we've got so many great players available. I think we'll be too strong, especially at home. If it was away, it's a different story. But after the performance that we've just had on the last night in that friendly FA Cup game that we've just had, I don't have any concerns whatsoever. I genuinely think we'll go out, we'll be way too strong. Leicester will come out to defend and try and sneak one over to either Maddison or Vardy, who's running through. I just think we'll be able to manage that quite easily. I'll be interested to see if Matip comes back into the side for this one.
That's right, because Kanate played alongside Van Dijk in this game, and
I wouldn't be surprised if he kept the same 11. Except obviously Robertson will come in because he couldn't wait to put him on during the unnecessary game.
That's what I was about to ask you. I was literally about to ask you, Pete. Like, are we going to see the same starting 11, considering how we played with a couple of changes? Maybe might look at starting Elliott perhaps in this game. But yeah, Robertson, I think we will start him. Unfortunately,
Alisson will come back in, and Fabinho,
definitely.
I think.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I never said unfortunately.
Simica's coming off.
Missed out on it.
You lot missed out on it, but I had Ali McCoist commentating, and he had so much praise for Simicas. He was loving Simicas' delivery.
What a man!
Didn't he used to do commentary for the old FIFA series before Mark Tyler took over? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he is a legend of the game. Look, I hats off to Simicas. We say this all the time. Every time he plays, he's fantastic. But we know how much Jurgen Klopp has his favourites in certain positions. I mean, you look at Henderson, he opens up the back door for so many players to walk through, and he still starts almost every week. So it's the same with Robertson. He'll come back in. But again, we've said before, there's been so many games coming up in February. I'm sure Simicas will get 15 or 20 minutes somewhere.
There's too many innuendos in there, James. You're
mate.
Talking about favourite positions and opening up people's back doors and stuff like that. You need to.
Well, mate, I'm just trying to give you material. Don't worry.
It's all stored in there, mate.
Well, for Leicester in the FA Cup, in the FA Cup match, at least they were without Castagna, Bertrand, Vardy, Johnny Evans. So and they've had Mendy out as well, who was playing for Senegal, I think. So it's interesting to see whether these players will come back into the squad, because if they're not, they're potentially looking at starting again with someone like a Daka or an Iheanacho. Maddison's still in the midfield. Tielemans is still there. You know what I mean? Like, there are still players there that can be a little bit tricky. But if these players are still out come Thursday night, Friday morning, you're probably thinking, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a one-sided match, which you'd probably expect coming at Anfield, I would imagine. But we should still be vigilant, I think, Steve. Surely, against a team like Leicester, even without Vardy there, you never know. Rodgers coming back to Anfield is always a bit of a banana peel, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that risk. But, I mean, it's easy to say that on paper we should comfortably win this, but on paper doesn't always work when it comes to football or just Liverpool in general. So I think we just have to go at them early doors. None of this. I don't want to see any of this patient play because Leicester are just going to sit back. They're just going to sit back and try and catch us on the counter. And I think we just need to just sort of assert ourselves on the game early and go for it. Like, was it the first leg of the semi-final of the League Cup against Arsenal? They went out to 10 men. And then we just sat and patiently played for the whole game. And then it got to the 90th minute. And then we started. It was after Minamino missed the one that went over the bar. And then we started playing. The tempo came. And it's like, where's that been for the previous 90 minutes? So as long as we don't do that, Leicester shouldn't. I mean, they beat us a few weeks ago, but we should be beating them. We've got enough in that squad.
Yeah, we beat them in the league last season at Anfield 3-0 with Jimmy Milner playing right back and Fabinho sitting in centre back next to Joel Matip. We had no Mo Salah. Mo Salah didn't play that game, and Naby Keita got injured, and we brought on
the Blade. Was that the?
No, that was in Europe when he did the Blade of Grass. Wasn't it?
That was Europe.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I think this one, and then he got replaced with Nico Williams, who of course went right back, and Jimmy Milner went centre mid. We won 3-0. So I have a feeling the squad we play at this weekend will be a little bit stronger than that. So we'll see.
Pete, I want to ask you, we've got 2 games in hand over Chelsea. They've played 24. Man City have played 23. Are we going to get 3 points here, move over to 51 points, and have City maybe thinking there is still someone on our tail here? Because if we can pull away from Chelsea, then it sort of becomes a 2-horse race. Granted, City are still in the lead and they're still firm favourites to win this league. I mean, they've had 5 wins and a draw in their last 6 matches. But if we at least keep winning games and pushing forward, does that maybe put doubt into Guardiola's squad?
I think the only thing we can do is just keep winning and then stop worrying about City. I think that's probably the one thing I'll be focusing on. I think just forget them. Because if we keep winning and worry about what we do, worry about the next game, worry about the next game, worry about the next game, then they potentially, they're versing Brentford at home this week. I just saw it here now, which looks like a straightforward match. But sometimes with Brentford, you never know as well. So, look, I wouldn't worry too much about City. I would just be worrying about, if I was Liverpool now, if I would just, the message to them would be, worry about us and worry about the next game. Like, forget them. And if it's close enough, come with 4 or 5 games to go, then off we go. Because Gerrard will probably win us the league at the last game of the year, and that's who they. You know, just quickly, if Gerrard does that, right, he deserves the medal.
I was about to say honorary winner, 100%, 100%.
You know,
inadvertently, he's done it for us.
If he beats City on the last game of the season and we win the league, I think he deserves Klopp's medal.
Boy. This is interesting. This is interesting because a couple of weeks ago when we spoke and George Santhis was on the show, and we were speaking about the hypothetical of Man City potentially dropping points here or there, and they were about to play Southampton.
Yeah.
And, you know, we said, they drew with I think you said, they drew with Southampton at the start of the season, but they're gonna walk over Southampton this time. And what happened? Of course, they dropped points.
They drew.
So, look, you were keeping composure really well there until the opportunity for Steven Gerrard to potentially win it for us came in. And your outlook's just slightly tainted a little bit. So I think we need to keep bringing this up every week to see what happens.
I mean, one can dream, I imagine, but like at the moment, a lot of people are saying Chelsea and Man United are going to battle for that 4th place and 3rd place, respectively, depending on who takes that. A lot of people are saying it's Liverpool and City in it again. City are still, some points ahead of us, but you never know with this Premier League. Weirder things have happened, but we've got to get through Leicester first and foremost. That's the main thing there.
We just got to worry about our own results at the end of the day and see what comes.
But Pete, as a manager, as you would know, when you're going for a title, if you're coming first, are you looking at the people behind you, or are you just focusing on your own game?
I think you just got to keep looking ahead, because the second you start looking backwards is when you would fall over, right? That's how. It's like when you're running, you never run looking backwards. If you're on a 100-meter race,
that's philosophical, mate. That is inspiring. That
is. So if I'm in a 100-meter race now against you, I'm not running looking back to see where you were. I'm looking
trip over your feet.
Finish line.
Yeah, you trip over your feet.
I guess that's got to be the message. Again, the same thing, just as I said earlier, if, chasing, or if you're in front and you're first, you don't worry about how many points behind you, how many games in hand, what they had for breakfast. You're just worrying about your own games and then how can you win your games to make sure you stay in front.
Well, to quote Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. So there you go. Let's get some score predictions, boys. We've got Leicester in a couple of days' time. Are we thinking we're going to win? Stephen, tell me.
I'm going to go a nice comfortable win, and I'm going to go 3-0.
3-0. Any surprise scorers?
I'm going to get... Diaz will get a goal off the bench.
Ooh.
We're going to have a Jota, another goal, and a Bobby Firmino goal.
Ooh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Yeah, that would be nice. Jimmy, yourself?
Well, I was going to go 3-0, but to keep it interesting, I'll go 4-0. Just cause. So yeah, I would love to see Diaz score. I can clearly see he's going to be a player that's going to make a bit of an impact a lot quicker than others. Usually we see Jurgen Klopp wait 3-4 months to bring someone in, but for attacking players of certain qualities, it doesn't seem to be a thing. So yeah, Diaz and Jota definitely, and I think because he's probably our top goal scorer of 2022, and I'm hoping he would be back and available, but I would love to see Fabinho come back and continue his scoring streak as well. He scores hardly any goals, and all of a sudden it hits 2022 and he just can't stop. And then I would love to see big Virgil van Dijk actually get on the score sheet. There's an air of calm about a game when Virgil van Dijk's on the score sheet, because as soon as he scores, everything else is set in stone. It's done. So it'd be wonderful to see that again. Been a while, I feel, since he's put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him. And
It's working against Palace.
It true did. Mr. Kafinas, yourself, your score prediction?
2-0. I think we'll win 2-0. I bet you he starts Luis Diaz. I'm going to say he's going to start Luis Diaz because he never starts Minamino in the league. So I think it will be Jota, Firmino, and Luis Diaz in the front three. And he'll play, I think, the same midfield as overnight. I think it just makes sense to me if you play the same midfield, because midfield's quite a very important area to just chop and change for the sake of it. I don't think Thiago's back yet to full fitness. I mean, we can throw Ox in there, but I don't think so.
You don't think Fabinho will come in?
Is he back 100% from Brazil?
Yeah, they're back.
He can trade in then. Yeah, then he's the one who will come in. Yeah, I didn't know who was back. Sorry, but
yeah, I think you'd say so. Definitely.
Just on Minamino, I just read this thing here now. This is crazy because I didn't know this, but Minamino has 14 goal contributions in 2,000 minutes of play, which is roughly about 22 matches.
Wow. And
people whinging about his contribution to Liverpool and all that kind of stuff. But for 7 mil, 14 goals in 22 matches, or goal contributions in 22 matches, that's more than Grealish, Sancho, and Lukaku so far.
Wow. That's saying something. Better than the others. That's not a bad return.
Yeah, I think people just got to relax when it comes to Minamino, and I hope he gets his chance to play against Leicester, to be honest with you. But
relax. Yeah. You relax, Ray. Relax. I had a Wogboy marathon the other night, so I watched Wogboy and Wogboy 2 Kicks of Mykonos, so they're still fresh in my head. But with that, we'll start wrapping things up. But before we do, Peter, we do have something to mention here. It's for a good cause, of course. We have Jason Chadburn here raising £5,000 for his 11-year-old daughter struggling with anxiety and self-harming, and she lives 120 miles away. Very sad news indeed. He's her father, 47 years old. He's unable to work due to major back operations, so he's trying to raise funds to buy an auto car so he can pick her up and more. And the local authority won't help either of them, which is quite sad news, which I find disheartening. For authorities not very welcoming to fathers. But then again, I do have some bias in that. Even though I'm not a father myself, I do see bias against fathers, and it's not very nice. But if you do want to contribute, we'll put this in the chat description, and you can contribute as you like. And Pete, anything else to contribite to this? Did I miss anything?
I think we'll also share it on our page as well. We'll put it on our page as well. So if anybody does want to contribute and help out, Jason, who's a fan of our show, watches our shows, then we'll just do it. Maybe we'll post it up to this show straight away.
Yep, good cause. We'll definitely do that. So, if you are willing and able to, please do contribute so we can grab his daughter, because that's not a nice thing to have. And as a parent, I can imagine. I mean, you boys down below, you guys know exactly what it's like. Pete and I ourselves, we're still eligible bachelors, or Pete isn't really, but my bad. I keep forgetting about that. I still think he's a strapping, handsome bachelor, but he's not anymore.
Just depends on the time. That's all.
Oh, don't let Evie find out. Sorry, Eve. He said it, not me. But with that, we'll wrap things up. Thank you for joining me, fellas. Thank you, everyone who tuned in throughout the show. Thank you to Rahul, North Red, and Strip Bear, who said Mendy with the smiley face for the goalkeeper of the tournament for the AFCON earlier on. But boys, thank you very much for joining me. This has been the Red Sea Down Under for the Red Sea Podcast. Until next